How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci by Michael Gelb. In order to learn how to think like Leonardo da Vinci, it is equally important to know why one should think like him. Leonardo da Vinci exemplified genius in everything he did, from his mental ability to his physical aptitude. He followed a path of refinement to reach his potential, which ultimately led him to succeed in various fields of study. This path of refinement, discovery, and expression condensed into Da Vinci's 7 principles: curiosità, dimostrazione, sensazione, sfumato, arte, scienza, corporalità, and coesione. Through these 7 principles, Gelb conveys and proves his thesis. Everyone has the capability to reach their full potential by pursuing the 7 Da Vincian principles focused upon a truthful, experimental, and holistic approach to life. The first of these principles is curiosità. Curiosità underlines a never-ending process of continuous learning and insatiable curiosity. Leonardo worked throughout his life to preserve the same level of curiosity found in children, which drove him to learn and see everything in as many different ways as possible. Curiosità demands opening one's perspective to new perspectives and an attempt to understand everything. It is a quest for truth and discovery. This desire for new perspectives makes curiosità an excellent way to solve problems. By tackling problems with both an open and inquisitive approach, one can develop a solution that addresses any question in a creative way. In addition to problem solving, learning is essential to practicing curiosità and satisfying one's curiosity. The second Da Vincian principle is dimostrazione, the dedication to question knowledge through experimentation, determination, and perseverance. Leonardo expressed this in his studies of anatomy, testing the conventional wisdom during his time. Da Vinci demonstrated dimostrazione with his inventions as well. When one idea failed, Leonardo sought for another. Dimostrazione ties into curiosità, with persistence in experimenting, learning, and exploring. This principle is also vital to self-development by revolving around the critical analysis of opinions, arguments, and affirmations. Through dimostrazione, one can clarify their values, mission, and goals, and connect to their beliefs. Sensazione, the third principle, highlights the development of the senses. Sensazione involves identifying and valuing all characteristics of a sensation through the improvement of our senses. Exercises that focus on identifying and refreshing senses, such as eye movement, drawing, and descriptive writing, can improve the visual sense, while listening to a variety of music and identifying differences in each genre can improve the auditory sense. Each sense can be improved individually, with various exercises and experimentation devised to better one's ability at sensazione. An environment based on sensazione that engages all of one's senses have been shown to increase both one's efficiency and effectiveness. Da Vincian principle number 4, sfumato, means to voluntarily grasp and immerse oneself in the unknown. Translated directly from Italian, the word translates to going up in smoke and embraces the essence of mystery and paradox, which Da Vinci constantly encountered in his search for knowledge. The more one practices curiosità, the more ambiguity one will find, and being able to acknowledge and accept ambiguity is a significant part of sfumato. Sfumato implies not only to embrace the uncertain, but to also reflect and relax in solitude and be inspired by the unknown. The 5th principle of arte scienza centers on whole brain thinking, the ability to balance both the creative and logical hemispheres of the brain. One of the simplest and most effective ways to balance both sides of the brain can be done using mind mapping. Mind mapping is an organizational tool that can be applied to daily planning, goal setting, problem solving, etc. In comparison to usual outlines, mind mapping gives someone the opportunity to come up with an idea before they attempt to organize it. Rather than attempting to organize information in a format based on simpleness in writing, mind mapping uses the structure of nature to structure information. Towards the center of the mind map lies the main idea or the topic, and from that branches out the subtopics in each additional unit. With each branch of the outline accompanies a single key word, and generally a picture representative of the word. As the branches spread further out, the ideas should become more specific, and connections between the key words will become present. To highlight these connections, lines can be drawn to group together ideas. A finished mind map will look like this. This is a mind map for how to think like Leonardo da Vinci. with each of the 7 principles branching out from the central image. From each of these 7 original branches come leaves of their own, clarifying their preceding branches, such as learning branching out from curiosity. Through mind maps like this, the holistic thinking involved with arte scienza becomes simpler to achieve. Principle 6, or corporalita, signifies the combination of physical health with mental ability. For Leonardo da Vinci, physical capacity was equally important to his mental genius. He maintained a healthy lifestyle through a nutritious diet and exercise. Furthermore, da Vinci demonstrated corporalita with a renowned upright posture and poise and the practice of ambidexterity. Just like Leonardo, balancing mental capacity with physical fitness is necessary in the Da Vincian path to genius. The 7th and final principle, cognizione, implies the appreciation of connections and interdependency between all things and how they form a larger picture. Da Vinci used cognizione in his art by taking features from a variety of things and combining them into one being. Cognizione requires the ability to sense wholeness and unity and the capacity to see relationships and patterns. This ability to recognize interdependency is vital to developing a mind map focused on one's goals and mission. Cognizione does not act as its own principle, but as a combination of all the previous Da Vincian principles. Cognizione is important in highlighting the connections found in everyone's lives. The 7 Da Vincian principles are demonstrated in the following video when Michael Gelb explains one of his past experiences of learning how to juggle.
I first learned to juggle more than 25 years ago. I saw somebody do it and I thought it was incredibly beautiful. It looked to me like moving sculpture. I went up to this great juggler and I asked him to teach me. But it turns out that he was not as good a teacher as he was a juggler. Do you know what he told me? He said, take these 3 balls, throw them up, don't let any of them drop. Do you ever get an instruction like that in the course of your career? Well, at the time, I just really wanted to learn, so I tried to do just what he said. I threw the balls in, but they all dropped, and I was making mistakes. And I remember what my high school wrestling coach told me. He said, Gelb, you're not trying hard enough. I want to see you give out 150%, so I tried even harder, and it got even worse. Balls falling everywhere. That's when I started to think about some of the things that we've been discussing today. I realized that if I could keep my mind open, curiosità, be more childlike and playful about the whole process, it would probably be easier to learn juggling and, well, really anything else. Dimostrazione. I realized that I had to figure it out for myself. I had to think for myself, and that a big part of learning how to juggle was going to be learning how to deal with mistakes. Sensazione. I realized that if I could enjoy the feeling of it, if I could take pleasure in the colors and the movement, even the sound, then I wouldn't be so worried if something dropped. I could just keep on going. Sfumato. I knew, or began to discover, that learning anything involved a journey into the unknown. Arte scienza. Well, the art seemed to be obvious, but what about the science? Well, I said, could I break this task down and make it simpler? You try this with me. You can watch this ball. Keep your eye on this one here. Ah, yes, what's it doing? All it's doing is going back and forth like this. So I simplified the process. I started working with 1 ball. Then I went to 2, and then 3. Made it so much simpler. Corporalita. Well, I had to bring the 2 sides of my body together. One of the first things you notice when you start to learn how to juggle is your non-dominant hand seems to have a mind of its own. It shoots the ball out like that. That's why you see people, new jugglers, they start juggling like this. They're running after the balls. We call it joggling. So one of my challenges was to get the 2 sides of the body together. And juggling is a marvelous way to help meet that challenge. And then the 7th principle, connessione. Everything connects to everything else. And that's when I had an experience that you can have right now. You see, when people ask me how I learned to juggle, if I don't tell them the story I told you before, I tell them the one I'm about to tell you now. I tell them I was walking down the street one day and I saw these balls going around in this pattern, and I stood behind them, and I've been there ever since. What's this pattern? It's the infinity pattern, and it represents the infinite potential inside every one of us.
From this video, it is easy to see how the 7 Da Vinci principles can apply to almost every daily activity. Although these 7 principles work to encourage genius in everyone, the work is intended more for college students, adults, employees, and employers alike. This target is highlighted mostly throughout the recommended or possible applications that Gelb describes, from creating an engaging environment to using a Da Vinci mind map to organize one's ideas in the classroom or in the workplace. The work uses logos or logical reasoning incorporated with an idealist belief that everyone has been endowed with the resources needed to reach their potential. The overall focus or emphasis in how to think like Leonardo da Vinci includes the Da Vincian principles, behavior, and thought to reaching one's full potential. Gelb demonstrates this with his organization of the book within 3 parts. The first about Da Vinci's life, the second about Da Vinci's principles, and the third about Da Vinci's drawing style. Gelb uses specific factual evidence cited from famous psychological studies by prominent and respected researchers, as well as psychological studies dealing with improved efficiency and effectiveness as a result of a creative work environment and on research distinguishing learning between individuals. From this evidence, one can infer an effective and internally valid argument conveying Gelb's message that everyone can achieve genius. Part 1 of the novel provides background information on Da Vinci's life to inspire the reader with the inventions and ideas of Leonardo da Vinci. Though Michael Gelb holds the belief that everyone can become geniuses, he also admits that Leonardo da Vinci was the greatest of all geniuses, and because of this, it is unlikely that there will ever be another as great as him. Despite this, Gelb goes further on to say that the 7 Da Vincian principles are meant to guide us to become more of who we are than of another Da Vinci. The second part of the novel directly addresses how to think like Leonardo by listing the 7 Da Vincian principles of curiosità, dimostrazione, sensazione, sfumato, arte, scienza, corporalità, and cognizione, attributed to the maestro's success. Through this part, Gelb supplies multiple self-assessments on one's level of skill for each principle to determine the areas of improvement needed for each potential genius. In the third part of the novel, Gelb gives a basic drawing course on Da Vinci-style drawing to teach the reader the skills of perception and sight. The purpose of this part is to give the reader new insight in their evolving views of the world and to expose them to new ideas. By following the 7 Da Vincian principles modeled after the life of Leonardo da Vinci, the greatest genius to have ever lived, Michael Gelb successfully establishes the message that everyone has an unlimited potential for genius.